Hey everyone, today I'm going to walk you through some effective strategies to raise your credit score. Years ago, I realized how critical it is to have a solid credit score, so I made it my mission to learn about everything I could about credit scores and how everyone can reach that 800 credit score mark as quickly and easily as possible. So stick around to the end to learn the 8 factors that can get you to an 800 credit score, and you'll leave with a complete plan so you can get started today. So the first part we're going to talk about is understanding your FICO score. So before diving into the specific actions, it's essential to understand what a FICO score is and the factors that influence it. Essentially, a FICO score is a 3-digit number that lenders use to assess a consumer's creditworthiness and risk of repaying borrowed money. FICO scores are calculated by the Fair Isaiah Corporation using data from 3 major consumer reporting agencies, Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax. FICO scores typically range from 300 to 850, with scores between 670 and 739 considered to be good. Furthermore, FICO scores are used in over 90% of credit rating decisions for lenders, including mortgage companies, auto loans, bank cards, and consumer loans. Now, it's calculated using several key variables. The first one is going to be your payment history, which accounts for 35% of the score. So, how well you pay off your credit obligations. The second part it looks at is credit utilization, which is 30% of your score, which is the amount of debt you carry related to your credit limits. The third piece is going to be length of credit history, which accounts for 15% of your credit score. So how long you've been building credit. So that's why typically when you have longer time using credit, the better your credit score is. The fourth part is going to be new credit. So that accounts for 10% of your credit score. Is how many new credit lines have you opened recently? And they're typically looking at the last 2 years. And the fifth is your credit mix, which accounts for 10%. The variety of credit accounts you have, such as credit cards, auto loans, and mortgages. Each of these factors play a role in shaping your credit score. So it's critical to keep them in mind as we move forward. So let's break down the 8 factors to get to a 800 credit score. So the first thing we're going to talk about is becoming an authorized user. One of the quickest ways to boost your credit score is by becoming an authorized user on someone else's credit card. This can be a game changer. I've seen it done before, especially if you know someone with a strong credit history. They can add you to their credit card. This boosts your score because of their positive history is now associated with your credit profile. However, this strategy isn't for everyone. The person adding you to their account, you have to be able to trust them. And also they have to be able to trust you so you don't negatively impact their score by missing any payments or misusing the card. But a lot of times what people will do, I've done this for family, add them to an account, but don't give them a card so then they can't use it. They're just basically reaping the benefits. Now, the downside is if you yourself become late on a credit card, then it does negatively affect the person that's an authorized user. But the solution to that is they can remove themselves off, or you can remove them as an authorized user, and then that credit history falls off. So it is kind of a win-win. Because if you guys don't know, missing one payment could downgrade your credit as much as 70%. But by adding someone or having you being added to someone's credit card, it can add as much as 30% to your credit, or 30 points to your credit score just by adding them. The second part is start building credit history. Now, if you're new to credit or have no credit history, the first step is start building it. I recommend applying to use your first credit card. If you're not approved, don't worry. There are many options like secured credit cards. With a secured card, you can put money down as form of a deposit, and that deposit becomes your credit limit. This is an excellent option for beginners because it gets you started on the right foot, and you can continue using your card responsibly. Your credit score will continue to go up. And what I've also seen with these secured credit cards is that eventually you'll be able to actually get your money back and keep that card as a credit and then increase your card increase your balance over time, which is a great option. Now, third part we're going to talk about is pay off your credit cards in full. It's important because paying off your credit cards in full is critical to maintaining and improving your credit score. Thanks to autopay, which helps significantly because otherwise you're using a calendar to have everything in there or by paper, and then it just doesn't help anyone. Autopay is the way to go, but you still have to follow up on those payments and make sure that autopay goes through, because I've seen it plenty of times when people are like, I had it set up an autopay, I had a banking issue, now all of a sudden they didn't make the payment, you missed the payment, you're gonna try to argue this with the creditor, and they're just gonna tell you, well, tough luck. That's why you always want to pay the bill a week in advance, just so you can double check if that payment went through, because also if you do it on the day that it's due, then you kind of, there's nothing that you can do, especially if you were late on that. Now let's talk about the fourth part, which is building multiple lines of credit. So once you've established some credit history and you're paying your bills on time, consider opening up more lines of credit. The more credit you have available, the lower your credit utilization rate is, which you really want to keep at 30%, which is a benefit to your credit score. Diversifying your credit also help. Consider taking out an auto loan, a mortgage, or even a small personal loan. You can actually also take out loans against your savings account at pretty low rates. Some banks offer them. Basically, I've seen people do this just so they can just build up their credit history repeatedly, right? So they take a portion of their savings, they take out a very low loan against it, pay themselves back that money, and then it shows up in your credit report as positive credit. Now, you can also do some boosting with your credit score. Some agencies let you do non-traditional credit that you can add to your credit profile just to prove to them that you've made all your payments on time. Now, let's talk about the fifth thing, which is waiting before applying for new credit. Timing is everything when it comes to applying for new credit. Every time you apply for credit, a hard inquiry is made, which temporarily lowers your scores. So if you're planning on making a major purchase like a car or a home, avoid applying for new credit right now. Now listen, typically from a FICO score, credit inquiries are not factored in after 90 days. But if you look at other companies like Vantage Score, they look at 2-year history. A lot of people do. So that's why people are so scared, like, oh, if it's on my credit report for 2 years. It's not. 90 days, right? More than 90% of companies use FICO for this. So just kind of keep that in the back of your mind. Another important factor, which is the sixth thing, is going to be keep your credit utilization under 30%. Ideally, you want to keep your credit utilization ratio below 30 or even better below 10%. If you can do that, this means if you have a $1,000 credit limit, you shouldn't use more than $1,000. You no more than $100 before paying it off. Those are important things to do because a lot of times credit cards are meant to, from my end, I like using credit cards because you gain points. But for some people, they use credit cards to live off of. But at some point, it catches up to you where you've exhausted your entire credit line and now you start becoming late. And it just starts having a negative impact overall on your credit report. The seventh thing we're going to talk about is check your credit report for errors. It is so important to do this, especially if you're thinking about home ownership or anything that you're trying to do in life that requires credit. You want to be either monitoring it all the time, but also checking it annually for any type of errors that come up, right? So where you guys can go to is annualcreditreport.com, and every year you can get a free copy of your credit report, but there's also tons of other companies that you can sign up for to have credit monitoring for free, they say, but there's obviously an exchange, right? They take some of your data, sell it, but then you actually don't have to pay for any credit monitoring services. And when you're not using your credit, please make sure that you lock it. We've seen identity theft on the rise, and people are like, I don't even know what these charges are, or people open up credit cards in their name. So again, those are things that you want to be able to consider. The eighth thing you could do is you can ask for a credit line increase on your current debt, which I think is phenomenal. And the reason on the things, you shouldn't be afraid to ask for a credit limit. A lot of times they'll do soft checks, so they're not even a hard credit inquiry. They already know your payment history because you've been making your payments with them. That could be good or bad, right? But they also look at what's called trending data when they're looking at qualifying you for these credit line increases. They see how you pay your bills. If you have $1,000 limit and you've been charging $200 every month and you're paying it off every month, then they might increase it to $2,000 and you continue that same pattern. Hey, you charge $400, you pay it off every month. So every 6 months or so, you can ask for a credit increase. And that's typically what they ask for, which again, just helps you with your current cards if you're worried about getting too many. One question I often get is that, well, if having one card's too many or too little and having 8 cards is too many, well, I've seen a whole gamut. I've seen people with 2 cards that have an 800 credit score. I've seen people that have 15 cards that have an 800 credit score. It's all about how you manage those credit cards. Now, if your credit limits are $10,000, let's say overall, and your balance is $10,000 or $11,000, it's going to have an extremely negative impact on your credit score. So a lot of times it's managing debt and budgeting are going to go hand in hand. Now, these steps will put you on the fast track to get to an 800 credit score. Credit is a powerful tool, especially when it comes to making significant financial decisions like buying a home. Take these steps to heart, and you'll be well on your way to achieving that coveted credit score. If you find this video helpful, please share it and smash that like and subscribe button. We do tons of videos around helping the veteran community leverage and utilize the VA home loan. And so I'll catch you guys in the next video.